Good morning. We're going to commence the press conference of the film Home for Christmas. And we have with us the director, Ben Hammer, the actors, Jessica Pellegrini, Nina Anderson-Bolt, and Thomas Nordstrom, the actor. That is to say, they're prepared to answer any questions you may deem pertinent. First question, please. Hi, good morning. In the film, we've seen encounters, disencounters, and re-encounters. A few doses of images are a trifle pathetic at times. Is that the way the director sees Christmas, or do you have your own vision of Christmas? Was that already in the book? All of those little encounters, disencounters, and whatever, did they all form part of the book when you read it, or is that your vision of Christmas as a director?
Well, that was quite a few questions in one, I think. No, first of all, the book or a selection of short stories had like 12 short stories, and I selected 6 or 7 of them, and I developed one myself, which was the kind of prologue and epilogue, tied up to a story that already was there with the refugees. But then I think I was quite truthful to at least the heart of the author's view upon Christmas time through these different people, different ages, different stages of life. No, it's not. What can I say? I mean, there are so many different people here and situations. So I can't say that it represents. Well, some of it represents my my feeling of Christmas. But I think that's the trick, and that's the challenge when you're doing an ensemble film based on short stories or shortcuts or whatever you prefer to call it. You can't go too deep into each person's, but hopefully that each and one of the persons give a piece of a more whole picture of how the Christmas is for different people, but also that you can recognize something yourself in the overall story. That was the aim, at least.
I think I can perhaps add that about, I don't know, 80% of people have very high expectations of Christmas, and more often than not, the expectations aren't quite met, and there's quite a lot of pressure around Christmas for it to be happy all the time. But you have people suffering, and every family has its story, and everybody's got their baggage, and Christmas is one of those times when it just naturally all falls to pieces, and if you're lucky, you bring out something lovely from your Christmas experience.
Yeah, I think also you can say that in general, deepest scene, it has nothing to do with Christmas, these stories. It could happen whenever during a year. But it's very easy I think it's very easy to put it as in the frame of the Christmas time, where when people kind of know what to do, what's expected of you, and then it's getting much more fragile, I would say, if you are falling out of these expectations. So I think it's a beautiful frame of try to tell something more in general about people, more universal things.
Preguntas, por favor.
Further questions?
Aquí otra vez en la primera fila.
Front row once again, please. And in the back row. Yes, I would like to ask the director, because you added the prologue and the epilogue to the film. Why the issue of the refugees?
No.
Did you get the question? Did you get the question? The director? Hi. Can you hear me? Hey, hello. Okay, just the question is, you wrote the epilogue and the prologue. Why the issue of the refugees? In the okay.
The epilogue and the prologue and the epilogue. As I said, the refugees was already in one of the short stories, And I think I wanted to try to put it into more to a bigger perspective. That was my idea. I mean, the small stories, as it was in the book, is very tied up to this small remote village in Norway. And I wanted, of course you can tell universal things out from very specific small situations, which I always do in my films. But still I wanted this, as the refugees was there, I wanted to connect them to the outer world, to put it that way.
Hi again. As they're different stories, I would like to know how you approached the editing of the film.
Yeah, the approach of the editing of the film, it's in a way, when I selected which short stories, I tried to select the one that I liked a lot, so I used my heart to select it. But of course, at a certain stage, you have to try to sort out how to connect them together, how they fit together. So it was very carefully planned, the whole stories, and I think the final version was quite like we planned it when I wrote the script. But still, there are always, when you get into the editing room, it's always room for extended some of the stories, shorten it. But I think it was quite like we planned it, actually, and the way we shot it. So, yeah. I used to do that. I used to plan very well, but I like to think, at least, that it's because then I'm free to improvise if there are coming up some better ideas. And I feel quite free in the editing room as well. So, but I think it functioned very well the way we planned it. So it's more or less like we wrote it. I wrote a shooting script.
I think also that is where, in the editing room is also where Bent has his genius, because I remember Thomas and I, we did a lot of scenes together, and sometimes we'd feel, oh yes, that was the one, we nailed it, yes, okay, now we feel really good as actors, and that is not in the film. Because Bent, he chooses exactly the right temperature, and that's where his instinct and his intuition just chooses exactly the right scene, exactly the right look in order to tell the story on that thread that he uses.
It's also very interesting to work with this specific story where Thomas, Nina, and Jessica is in. Jessica haven't seen the film, so we have to say that. You can't lie about that. Nina and Thomas have seen it. But Jessica is Thomas' wife in real life. And I'm a little scared now to...
I'm very nervous.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going home from here as a divorced woman.
So we'll see, yeah.
Well,
But that tensity, in a way, we use, she knows the story, of course, and the script, so we used that also in the church when we shot the scene. So, well...
There's a reason we're not holding hands. Jessica's here.
There's a reason why I'm sitting here. You know, I'm half Italian, so...
and there's the reason why I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
You always say that on Christmas Day we're all much better persons, and this is a bit of a cliche because Christmas goes by and then we go back and become humans again, or we become regular people, whatever. So therefore I want to ask whether the film, the idea, what it's trying to tell you, that people still have a heart throughout all the year, but it's awoken, or it wakes up at Christmas. And another thing that draws my attention is the three actors are here of that part of the film, which I think is outside the film. The whole film is quite dramatic with a lot of tension, and then And this part of the film, this story, which you highlight because all of you have come, all of the actors have come of this, and it's all different. It's humour, no matter whether it turns out, the story turns out well or not. Because I think it turns out well because there's a bit of complicity between the three of them at the end in the scene in the church. So do people just become good at Christmas and become... What's the story there?
Yeah, I don't know if I understood the question.
No, the question is, we're all good people, but we're supposed to be better people at Christmas. Was this the idea?
Again, like you translated that we're supposed to be better people during the Christmas time. I doubt that we are. Maybe we try a little bit harder, maybe. But still, as I said, things are also getting very complicated and difficult during the Christmas time, and especially for a lot of people that can't really fulfill the expectations. But for me, I mean, there are two sides of Christmas. One is it's a time for meeting family, meeting friends, you are eating good food. On the other hand, you are attacked by the commercial side of it, which is not always very funny, I think. And of course, when you are children, you are always talking about the focusing on the gifts, on all the presents. So for me, that background also is there, even if we don't describe it in the film, but that's something that all of us carry with us, I think, because it's a Christmas time. We see the film now before Christmas, but I also think that when we're approaching the Christmas time, when we're going to release the film around the world, you also get closer to that feeling. And I think that also gives something. And I mean, the Christmas films we are used to is from Disney, and it's more or less fairy tales. At least I think this one is connected to the real world and real people. And I think you can feel it, I hope at least you feel it, even on these few hours during the Christmas time, that they are, it's not just because it's Christmas, but it's because they are human beings. And for me, the whole project is more like being a human being first, and then secondly, it's also Christmas time. If that was some kind of answer to your question.
And life is hard. I mean, life is hard, and it hurts, doesn't it? So I think I agree with you. I think that you do try to be your best at Christmas. You try to find the best goodness deep down within yourself, however far away it's felt the rest of the year. When Christmas comes, there's, like Ben said, there's that expectation, and you try to make it right, whatever your challenge has been that past year or years or whatever struggles you're having in your life. At Christmas, you try to do things right. Not always successfully, but you still try, I think.
And the other part of the question, yes, as regards to the story of the three protagonists, the three actors that are here today, it seems that that story doesn't fit into the leitmotif of the film, because the film is much more intense and more dramatic, the other stories. Why did you choose this story, and you fit it in there? Because it's a bit more humoristic, that's what he said earlier on.
It fits very well because it represents the life of these people. You have one family father with his family, and you have the lonely, call it mistress, who has some kind of family, but she's alone and she wants badly to have a family. And I think that's absolutely fills out the circle of different people. So for me, it's I like the story, of course. As I said, that's how I selected it in the first place, but still it has to fill out the whole circle, and I think it absolutely represents life of a lot of people these days.
And I think that the hunger to be loved is a very powerful driving force. So it definitely moves along with the rest of the story.
Yeah, and it costs something. I mean, to do this fulfill this relation, I mean, you have to destroy another relation, which is happening quite often, I think, when you are, at least when you are at that age. People these days are, well, like my age, it's very often that you start your second family career. That's getting more and more normal, I think. So this is just in between this.
And I haven't seen the movie, so I couldn't talk specifically about how this part fits in. But I've seen other movies by Bent, and I think that's one of his signums. I don't know if you could put it that way, to mix the seriousness with the humor, just to make the humor become more humoristic and the seriousness even more serious. I don't know. You need both, I guess. That's what I think.
Hi. Here.
There.
How is it like to have this film presented in San Sebastian? And, I mean, do you see any particular characteristics of the festival that has to do somehow with what you wanted to show with this movie?
I didn't get it.
I mean, if you see some specific characteristics of San Sebastian Festival that somehow has to do with your work, with what you want to show with your work or with this new movie?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can connect it to any festivals or any country, I think. That's the idea, that everybody can recognize it. I haven't screened it yet. Well, it has been screened, as you know, but we will have the first screening together with the audience tonight. And it's always interesting, of course, to see how the audience is catching the film. So I look forward to, to see. Of course, I'm scared too. It's a risky business, but still you have to do it. That's why we make films.
But as festival cities go, San Sebastian is amazingly beautiful. It's, I could come here again.
Hola, buenos días.
Hi, good morning. Congratulations for the film. And quite curiously, I would like to go back to what my colleague said a moment ago. I've lived through the film exactly in the opposite. I thought the most dramatic story was the one that has the least amount of hope. And all of the rest of the stories, it's like a Christmas story. Like, for example, they start well, but they finish off badly. But that's the good thing about watching a movie. One sees it and receives it as one feels it.
That story is, it ends in a kind of status quo, you can say. And in the story also, this has been going on for a long time, I suppose. So you're right. But I think also that's concerning the other stories as well. I think that what I like with the author of the book, or the short story collection, is that it's a kind of open stories. Even if you learn to know these people to a certain depth, I think it's a kind of open endings in all of them as well. And I like that, actually. So you can yourself, you can finish it if you want, or connect it. So, but maybe, like you said, I agree upon that maybe this one is, you're feeling more like it's a more status quo in the other one. But basically it's not, I think, but the feeling is maybe that way.
I think you can say that the married couple in the film has a lot to talk about after this Christmas. Probably they will.
Maybe even after the showing of the film, we'll see.
Well.
Help!
Hi. Precisely You've said you haven't seen the film, but both of you have seen the film. What opinion do you have of the rest of the stories in the film? Perhaps you've just seen it and said, "Oh, we like our story better than all the rest." Or what do you think of the rest of the stories of the film?
I mean, to see yourself on a big screen doing things that we do in the film is not everyday experience, hopefully. But so I can't, say that much about my own performance. But I think the film as a whole is a fantastic film, and I've been working with Bent before, and I think it has his signum of, as Jessica said, of great humor and seriousness at the same time. So I really enjoy the movie, and I can't say that I like that story more than another story. I think they all fit together, as a whole.
But, Thomas was playing one of the two main characters in my film Kitchen Stories that some of you might have seen, sitting up in the chair observing the other guy, so I had to give him something different this time.
And boy, how different.
Part of the deal.
And I got it.
But I also when I saw the film in Toronto, seeing yourself on screen is always a bit strange. Seeing that much of yourself on screen is definitely strange. However, I think there's a reason you're not supposed to see that side of yourself, or else God would have given us eyes somewhere else. But when you withdraw and you just sort of watch the film as a whole, after I'd seen it, I was just so emotionally moved and couldn't wait to get in touch with our colleagues and tell them how wonderfully they all played, and the stories were just so attainable. You feel them. They're real. They affect you because you can recognize yourself I'm not divorced, but I could just recognize that frustration that the father felt when he couldn't spend Christmas with his children. There's so many things that you just recognize the emotion because that's what we are. We are emotional people, and it was just a very good experience, and I just felt so proud and so grateful to have been able to be in this particular film with Bent. It was a big moment for me.
Thank you, Bent. Yeah, thank you. But I also think that this, in one way, maybe it's not a Christmas film, like I said, a Disney Christmas film, if that's what we expect of a Christmas film. But it's a Christmas reference film, at least, and it questions more what is Christmas, without people and their lives, and home for Christmas. What's home for people? And I think that when we worked with the film, we more and more discovered that the Evangelium was there, the Christmas Evangelium from the Bible. And for me, it's a little bit like responding on the title is home is maybe where your heart is, if you can summarize it that way.
Bien, ¿alguna pregunta más allí? Sí.
Any further questions? Yes. One there and another one over there.
Congratulations, and I want to say that where I look in your movie, I believe everyone, and I think that it's very easy and so understand for all. But I want to ask to Mr. Director of this movie, how you work and how your system of working with actors on the story about sexual character. How you work? It's very close to them.
Yeah, I'm not showing them how to do it. If that's what no, it's always tricky part to do this nudity scenes, of course, and I try to do it as as easy as possible for the actors and for the team, of course. And I think the key to do it is also, of course, your professionality, but also humor. I mean, we had all a good laugh, and I mean, what can you do? So, but it's not funny to do it, I can promise you that. I know a Swedish director, Bo Widerberg, he used to say that, okay, if we do a nudity scene, all the members of the team has to be nude as well.
Oh, that would be something. That would be great.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me this before?
Oh, no.
I thought they were.
So you can feel the solidarity.
Yeah,
So
it
we
is.
didn't do it that way.
Too bad.
But it was just you and the photographer, the DOP in the room when we were shooting the scene. But then afterwards we all went out to well, the other room, and the rest of the staff was watching the screen, seeing everything. So, well, that's modern times.
I think when I was told that Bent wanted me in his film, it's like a good news, bad news joke. I don't know if you have those in Spain, where the good, Nina, there's this great news, you're going to be in a Bent Hamer film. Yay! Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, but you have to be naked.
That's even more fantastic.
And I remember I went through a panic stage where I thought, okay, I have to lose weight, start dieting. So I tried to diet, and I jog, and I hated it, and I gained 10 kilo, and oh my God, nothing's gonna work. So I thought, okay, all right, I guess I'm just gonna have to be real me with all my real cellulite and all my real body bits.
Well, that was the idea.
I know, real people on film. Who'd have guessed, eh? And then we came to do the scene, and Bent. I mean, Bent is an amazing director. He's a man that you can trust. He's not just sort of sending sexuality out there in order to make money. It's you trust that it's a very important part of the story to see how these two people just love being with each other. And but we got to the filming day, and Bent had discussed what he wanted, and then on the very day of filming, he discussed the choreography of what we were going to do. The camera's going to go like this, we want to see that and that and that, and then the camera's going to come back and it'll see that. And so that's quite, you trust that, okay, great, I don't have to, think of things to do in exactly this scene. That's quite calming. And then we were to take our clothes off. And we were actually wearing full costume. Yeah, I mean, you can't tell, but when we did this scene, we had on these underpants that were flesh-colored, that looked like the color of your flesh, that they put on you, and then they tape it with electrical tape to keep the wires down, and then they cut off the bits that then will be visible, so it looks like you're naked. But so you're standing there looking at each other with no genitalia, nothing showing, tape, and you just feel like a sort of a rather disfigured Barbie. Sort of not one that you'd get in the shops even. I mean, so there we were, sort of looking at each other, feeling rather strange and Barbie-like. And and I think I probably was the luckiest one because when it came to removing the tape, it's really sticky, and I don't have as much body hair as Tom.
I don't have that much either. It was like Brazilian wax.
It sounded like you had a lot. So when it came to removing the tape, I was in one room and getting dressed, and I could hear in the next room, ah! Oh! So I think I was the lucky one of the two.
Yeah. It's a little easy, of course, to focus on this scene when the actors are here, but I mean also that we are only three of a lot of the actors is because we would like to have all of them here, but they are working on other projects right now, so that's also why. So the ensemble for this specific story are not here because that's the most important story. So just to tell that also. So I mean, and it's easy to focus on the sexual part of it, of course, but that's not why. So you understand that. Maybe that was what he wanted to hear, but now he left. I don't know.
Probably.
Pardon. Excuse me. Another one of the stories. Over in the back there. There's a bit of an echo in the back. I would like you to tell me how you did the story of the adolescents, the two kids, and how you close the film, the story that way, which I think it's the most open of all.
In the book, the girl was not Muslim, and she was not black. But she came from a family where they didn't celebrate Christmas, so that was the common, background. But I thought it was nice. I also asked, I had free hands to develop all the stories from the author, but I showed it to him, and he thought it was a brilliant idea to bring in this other religion into our society, which is based on the Protestant way of seeing things. And working with children is, it's always tricky. It's so beautiful when it functions very well, when it happens, and it's so innocent. And I think that was a part of it also, that he's in love with this girl, and he's lying, of course, to get closer to her, and he even is disappearing from the Christmas dinner from his own home. And they see it in a kind of distant way through the telescope. I think in a way it contains the very close relation between them, and also the perspective of what you can do with your life and how to present it in a wider picture. So for me, it's maybe that one is it's an unfinished life, like the baby, of course, also that is born there. So for me, it's very nice to end it up at the roof, as maybe one of the. It's really a kind of open ending on that too. I don't remember anymore how it ends in the book, and I think that you have to throw the book away at a certain part, and you can't film the book. You have to turn it into your own story. So yeah, that was the approach, and also to represent that age of life with these young people. I actually asked my son. In my last film, O. Horton, my two sons was there. They don't want to be in the films, they want to play football, of course. And they saw the first they did there. We managed to get tickets to see San Sebastian playing against Real Madrid. And it was close for San Sebastian here. And I remember, because the youngest one had the biggest part in O. Horton, and I asked my oldest one, he's about the age of the young people in the film, that there is one part now, Anton is his name, that you might want to try. And I said, but you have to do the audition, because it's a lot of dialogue, and you have to compete. And he was so happy and said, I really want to do it. He was like a dog, and like a circus dog. He was around me all the time and rolling around on the floor, and what it's about, and I told him the whole story, and he was happy all the time until the very end. And I said, and up on the roof there, in the very end, you have to give her just a little kiss. And he just looked at me, and it transformed. No fucking way, I never do it. And he slammed the door, and that was the end of the discussion. Yeah. So. Well, you have that, I mean, the ambivalence I felt when I talked to him is probably also there between these young people, and I like that, these possibilities. And always the girl that is like 2 years ahead of the boys in that age, also more, mature.
I think I like that story a lot, because it reminds me of first love. I mean, it's love in all its purity, and I mean, he wants to impress the girl, so he tells her that they don't celebrate Christmas. I mean, I think that's just beautiful.
Bien, ¿alguna pregunta más?
Any further questions? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias.